Basic Skills Day 9, solving equations. We're going to solve more complicated equations involving multi-steps. So, here are the steps to solving something that is more complicated. First of all, you're going to add or subtract to get all the constants, which are the numbers, on one side, and to get all the variables on the other side. So basically our goal is to get our variable isolated, but since we have variables on both sides of the equation right now, like this, we have to add or subtract so that all of the plain old numbers, the constants are on one side and the variables are all together on the other. And then once we get that, we multiply or divide to get our x value alone. So you can either subtract 4x from each side or 3x. If you want to keep your numbers positive, subtract the smaller value or add it, depending. So now 3x minus 3x gives me no x's over there, and it gives me 1x, or just x here. So plus 7 equals 18. And then I need to subtract 7, so I get all of my numbers on the side together. So now I get x equals 11, and that is my answer. And remember, if you want to see if your answer is correct, you take that x value that you got right here of 11, and you plug it back in here and here for x. So that would, if I'm checking, it's 4 times 11 plus 7 equals 3 times 11 plus 18. And you see if this is true. Well, this is 44 and 7. So that's 51. And 33 and 18 is also 51, so that works. That's the correct answer. Okay, so now this is even more complicated because not only do you have variables on each side, but you also have something more complicated with this 2 on the outside, where we're going to have to use the distributive property. So our steps are, first of all, if we have the distributive property, which means we have a number outside this parenthesis, and when we have a number outside of a parenthesis, it means multiply. So we're going to have to distribute. So we're going to have to distribute as our first step. And then once we distribute, we're going to combine like terms. So let's do those two steps. When I distribute, 2 times 4m gives me 8m. 2 times negative 5 gives me negative 10. Now, I don't have any like terms on the same side. Okay, you cannot take the 3, I've seen this happen before. People will add these together and they'll just say it's 11m. But that doesn't work because they're on opposite sides of the equal sign right here. Here's your equal. Okay, if you're moving across the equal, you have to do the opposite, or add or subtract, to get them to the other side. So what our step would be next is to get all of the constants on one side and all the variables on the other. So again, I am going to subtract the smaller number from each side. 3m minus 3m gives me 0 m's. So now I have negative 10 equals 5m minus 10. So now I'm going to get the constants, or plain old numbers, on the side together by adding 10 to each side, and that gives me 0 equals 5m. And you might be thinking, well, that can't be, I must have made a mistake. But you really didn't, because all that's happening here is, here's our multiply or divide to get x alone. So I'm going to divide each side by 5 so that I have 1m, or simply m, and 0 divided by 5 is just 0. And if you still think you made a mistake, then go ahead and plug that value in up here for your m value. And if I do that, that's 3 times 0 minus 10 is supposed to be equal to 2 times 4 times 0 minus 5. So what that gives me here is 3 times 0 is 0, so I just have negative 10 equals, and then 4 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 5 is negative 5, so I get 2 times negative 5, which is negative 10. So yes, 0 can be one of your answers. Okay, now we have something more complicated, even more so because we have variables on each side, and we have, this is really tricky right here, this subtracting. You're subtracting this whole parenthesis. That's tricky, okay? You also have some things to combine on each side before you start moving things around. So, first thing we look at is, again, distribute, okay? Well, you might be going, well, there's nothing to distribute. Well, you could think of this as like a -1 outside and then multiply each value by -1. What I like to do, and it's totally up to you what you think works best, is I like to think of this as subtracting each of those values. So that means I have to subtract the 6 and I have to subtract the -4y. So now what I have on the right side is 4 minus 6 minus a -4y. And if I simplify that, that would be 4 minus 6, but now I have plus 4y. Okay, so that's that side. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the other side that I didn't really do anything with yet. So I have 4y plus 7 minus 9y. Now, we haven't had one like this yet, I don't believe, but what's happening now here is we have 4y and -9y on the same side of that equal right here. So now we don't like add or subtract the opposite. What we do here is we just combine the like terms. So here's where we are combining the like terms. So 4y minus 9y gives me -5y plus 7 equals, and I have some other like terms. On the other side, I have the 4 minus 6 that I need to take care of. So that gives me -2 plus 4y. Now we're back to the same type of example we started out with. Now what's different about this, hopefully you can see this, is that these values right here are on the opposite sides. Okay, so now we don't just combine them. Now we have to add or subtract them to get them to the other side. So I am going to add the smaller number or subtract the smaller number. So I'm going to add 5y to each side. That gives me 0. So now I have 7 equals -2 plus 9y. So I have my variables all together. I need to get my constants all together. So I'm going to add 2 to each side. Now that gives me 9 is equal to 9y. So now I multiply or divide to get x alone. So I'm going to divide by 9, and that gives me y is equal to 1. So again, you can plug that back in to check and make sure you've got it correct. And that is the end of our work for day 9 basic skill, or excuse me, yeah, day 9 basic skills.